Reminiscing on decisions, having like premonitions. I'm more sufficient, have to feed my kids, and I'm on a mission. Losing my religion, ambition, my inner visions, conditions for demolition with my lyrical ammunition. Reminiscing on decisions, having like premonitions. I'm more sufficient, have to feed my kids, and I'm on a mission.
Your picture perfect is whatever, because every single dream that I've ever had was sad, cause they were never given wings. And I paint on this canvas at the start of the chapters of my life to show I'm colder than the heart of Alaska. Yet I fight with inner demons who show no conviction or dedication.
It is February 2nd, 2018. I want to welcome you to Let's Talk Native on the LTN Radio Network. This program breaks all the rules for Native radio. No buffalo speeches, no mystic healing, no special Indian prayers. We tackle the real issues facing Native people. We'll look back at our glorious and our grave history, a tough look at where we're at now, and a look forward to our ongoing battles for sovereignty and autonomy. Let's Talk Native is produced in association with Iroquois Promotions on the LTN Radio Network, streaming live from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation, and simulcast and rebroadcast on the Gwe, CKWE in Tandanega. You can find us at www.ltnradionet.com, and of course, we are streaming live on Facebook. We've had a little bit of trouble over the last while with our Facebook live streams. Some problems with the equipment, I guess, and the software updates. But I think we've got it now. Look, I'm John Kane. I'm the show's host and producer. And we opened up the program with Bug and Malone, Losing My Religion. And there's a reason I chose that song. Look, I want to talk candidly about prayer. I want to talk about this notion that Native people have become these spiritual creatures. It's part of the reason I open up my show the way that I do. And I talk about no buffalo speeches and no mystic healing or special Indian prayers. Look, if you are on Facebook, and I'm on Facebook quite a bit, if you're on Facebook, one of the things that you're going to see a lot of is are people talking about their circumstances and about being going into surgery or having an accident or losing a loved one or a sick child. And time again, you're going to have people say, pray for me. You know, pray for my child, pray for my, and all these people asking for prayers, and all these people offering prayers, all these people saying, oh, you're in my prayers, you're in my thoughts and my prayers. Look, you know, it's a nice sentiment, but in 500 years of forced assimilation into, you know, Christian beliefs and residential schools and, you know, indoctrination, you know, at the most basic levels, and death as a result of it, all that prayer hasn't really gotten us anywhere. And, you know, as I look back on Standing Rock and I look at the tensions that existed between the people who wanted to do direct action, who wanted to do something to stop that pipeline, and all those people said, no, we're a prayerful people. When did that happen? I mean, and I'm not saying it happened at Standing Rock. I mean, even the whole ghost dance thing that would result ultimately in, you know, the massacre at Wounded Knee and the murder of Sitting Bull. Even that was this whole thing that we were going to use prayer, and that there was going to be divine intervention that was going to allow us to, you know, subdue our oppressors and that kind of stuff. You know, look, at some point, it's our actions that are going to dictate, you know, our future. It's what we do to prepare. You know, so, you know, I opened the promo for the show. I said, I won't pray for you, so don't ask. And I won't. But I don't want anybody to feel slighted because I won't. I won't because I don't believe in it. I just don't believe in the concept that I'm going to speak to a man in the sky who's going to provide, you know, in a whole world of global conflict, that they're going to, you know, grant somebody's Christmas wish, you know, or they're going to, or that you know, some being in the sky is going to direct divine intervention on, you know, on who wins the Super Bowl or hits a home run, or whose sick child gets well, because there are children dying every single day, terrible deaths, you know, not just the gun violence that you see in, you know, in schools, domestic violence, terrible things happening to children every single day. And anybody who believes that my prayer or anybody's prayer, speaking to the sky, falling on your knees at your bedside, is somehow going to provide the divine intervention for some specific reason or specific cause. There's almost an arrogance to that. I mean, I've talked about it before, but I recall a number of years ago, there were two items in the news. One of them was like I want to say 8 or 12-year-old girl that was missing. And the other was a boy around the same age that was missing. The boy turned out to have gotten lost on some sort of Boy Scout retreat or something like that, and was, essentially missing for days. And they found him in the woods, and he was unharmed. And the parents, talked about how their prayers were answered, and how grateful they were to God that their child showed up and unharmed, and all that stuff. The 12-year-old girl was raped and murdered and found behind a dumpster. And I'm sorry, I just refuse to believe that somehow the prayers for that little boy were more effective than the prayers for that little girl. We get sucked into this stuff. Again, 500 years of indoctrination. I mean, including, the use of disease, knowing they had medicines that could cure some of those diseases, and then trying to dupe our people into believing that, no, medicine wasn't going to cure you. Prayer was going to do it. Jesus Christ was going to do it. The whole idea that some of the illnesses that befell our people because of the smallpox and influenza, some of the things that the Europeans brought to our lands, that somehow it was God's will that we died because we were pagans, we were children of Satan. I mean, that's the way it was purported, folks. I mean, to convince an entire, I hate to say race, but 500 nations, 700 nations of people or distinct peoples, that their systems, belief systems, if you will, but certainly the culture that had sustained them for thousands of years, that it was all wrong, that it was all satanic, and that they had to abandon all of that and adopt the words in a little black book. And then all the things that were going to happen to us, including the rape and murder and pillaging of our land, the theft of our land, the removal of our people, that somehow that trade for all of the genocide that befell our people was worth it for civilization and Bible? Look, during Standing Rock, we heard it over and over and over again that the people were gathering for prayer, that we were a prayerful people. And again, I got to ask the question, well, when did that happen? When did that happen? When did we go from being people of action and people who knew what resistance could be or should be to people who were just going to pray and hope for divine intervention? And I attribute this back. I mean, this isn't just about adopting Christianity. I attribute some of this to this whole notion of Christianizing our belief systems, because that happens too. And I'm not just talking about Code of Handsome Lake and the Quaker influence. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that we fell in line with everything from God and country, meaning the United States, not meaning our specific nations. We fell in line. We stopped resisting, and we became assimilated and indoctrinated. And now this new concept that goes, that gets floated around so much, this idea of decolonization, not so much. I don't think our people are really prepared for that. Look, not only have we had this, religion and spirituality, and again, I'm not just talking about Christianity. The whole idea of creating like this cartoon image of our culture, talking trees. I mean, when we use a metaphor for our relationships with creation, the Ohunda Gariwadekwa, the opening, the words we say before all else, is not a prayer. It's not even a thanksgiving prayer, to God or Creator or any of that stuff. It's an acknowledgement of our relationship with everything. But there are people who, Native people, they believe that that the moon is their grandmother. Mohawks believe that. Senecas, Haudenosaunee believe. No, that's not exactly right. When we use the expression grandmother, we don't mean it literally that it's our mother's mother, our father's mother. That's lost in translation. So all of these expressions of acknowledging our relationship, all of this these things that are meant to demonstrate our respect for the relationships of creation have been taken out of context. And you know what? We start to believe their interpretations of our culture. We start reducing that understanding, reducing that knowledge that was handed down for thousands of years to a Disney version of our culture. That we can talk to the animals, and that, look, we can communicate and we can learn. I mean, that's a part of our culture. But the idea that we can talk to a raccoon, or have or Pocahontas can cozy up to a tree and get advice from her grandmother's tree. No, it's simply not true. And of course the other thing, and I've talked about this before, this concept that who we are is not just a gift of creation, but it's a gift from the Creator. Like it's in this male figure, and I'm not talking about Sagoyat Disu. I mean, some a part of the story that's associated with our creation story. I'm talking this notion that we just plug the word creator in for God, and we think that we're being native about it. This idea that everything that has become a part of our culture was a gift from the Creator, not something that our people, an intelligent, progressive, evolving, intelligent people could develop, like our language. We get told that our language was a gift from the Creator. We get told that the Ganahuida was sent by the Creator. We get told that lacrosse was the Creator's game. The Creator gave it to us. Our people weren't intelligent enough to come up with the game on our own. This is what we're told. And I think it's fine to associate our human development as Ongwe as a product of our relationship with creation. I think that's fine. But when you oversimplify it and you turn it inward into something that is just like direct divine intervention that allowed us to not only be tied to this land in the first place, but every aspect of our development is tied to a specific act of God or Creator, and it reduces. I mean, it actually, to me, is shows a lack of gratitude to our ancestors that came before us. So, as when I opened up the show with my promo on Facebook, and I said, I won't pray for you, so don't ask. What I'm saying is, if you're in need of something, and I don't care if you're how desperate your situation is. Look, it was a number of years ago that I my son-in-law got sick, and my grandchildren lost their father. But while he was sick, I remember writing in Mavi magazine and in some of the stuff I was posting online and my blog and other places. I said, look, I'm not asking for your prayers. If you want to do something, if you want to perform some act of kindness, by all means do it. Stop by, drop off chicken wings, a pizza. Stop by and visit. Spend some time. Provide some comfort in terms of the relationship. But don't just post it on Facebook that I'm praying for you. I know I joke and I say it sarcastically, but all those prayers and 25 cents is only worth a quarter. It doesn't get it done. It hasn't gotten it done in 500 years. We even have a saint that's been named, Keleri de Gaguita. The Vatican, the Pope, gave us a Mohawk saint. Yeah, big deal. We are a people of action. We are a people who control our own destiny. Look, I know that there's big issues out there. I mean, there's disease and sickness and climate change and of course all the tragedies that that have befallen us because of European contact and and America becoming this superpower in global conflicts. I mean, I understand that there are big issues at play that affect us. But if we reduce ourselves to somebody who just has to sit and huddle on our bedside on our knees, or look, even burning tobacco as the action that we take for our survival. I mean, even the Pope said, if you pray to end hunger, then follow it up by feeding somebody. If you get up in the morning and you want to burn tobacco for a good day, then do something to make it a good day. The burning tobacco didn't get it done. Again, there are elements of our culture that cause us to self-reflect. I mean, the reason we do the Ohundo Giri Wadekwa, the reason we do the Thanksgiving ceremonies, it isn't to win God's favor or the Creator's favor. These are teachable moments. These are things that we do in our culture that are intended to remind us what our role is, what our role is with our family, what our role is with the environment, what our role is in terms of acknowledging the seasons. And again, never forgetting that creation has provided everything that we need to survive. So those Thanksgivings are not to try to win favor with the powers of creation. What the intention of those ceremonies are to teach our young. The whole reason for doing it is to never let ourselves and the people around us, and in particular our children, forget how great life is and how fortunate we are to live in a world, and specifically on our lands, that have provided so much for us. I mean, in nature, everything has been provided. Medicines, food, inspiration. I mean, we learn, we adopt behavior that we learn from the behavior of others, not just other people, but other parts of creation. I've said this before, and part of the acknowledgement, part of that led me to this conclusion. I've said it before that if we lost everything, our language, our dances, our songs, our ceremonies, if we delve back into a close inspection and analysis and learning from nature, we can actually restore the main and significant parts of our culture, because that's what they're tied to. I remember listening to this environmentalist, this guy who was a biology professor and, studied everything from the oceans to, animal, all of this stuff. I remember listening to this guy talk about, about his experiences in observing nature. And I wrote to him. This guy's name was Carl Safina. And I wrote to him and I said, you have demonstrated to me that that a white man that has none of the background that we have has learned significant elements that are such a main part of our culture simply through your observation of nature. And it convinced me. This white man convinced me, listening to his observations about nature, how much nature still has yet to teach us. Unfortunately, we've adopted this framework of spirituality that says we need to believe. We need to be people of faith and prayer, rather than being the people of observation, critical thinkers. And it's part of the reason that we've lost our way, that path that we're supposed to be on. Because, it was easy just to fall in line with what was becoming, or had become, especially to the dominant societies around us, conventional wisdom, which isn't wisdom at all. So, look, I'm not trying to condemn people of faith. I'm really not. But what I'm suggesting in this show is that we got reduced. We got transformed into people of faith, as opposed to people who control their own destiny. and we tell stories. We speak of the past as if our entire existence, again, is owed to divine intervention. And I think that's a travesty. I think it does two things. It neglects what our ancestors, created for us. And again, the development of our language and so many elements of our culture, the stories, our systems, the Guyana de Goa. I know people think, well, that was divine intervention. The Creator sent the Ganawida down to do all this. And, and again, the story of the peacemaker has all kinds of, supernatural elements to the story. But, we do that with stories. We do it. We take truth and we mystify it a little bit. We try to aggrandize it in such a way that it becomes legend and it becomes folklore, not necessarily history. I mean, the history, and the true facts of the formation of the Guyana de Goa and our people are less significant than what it is, than what is the Guyana de Goa. And unfortunately, and I've mentioned this over the last couple of shows, we spend a lot of time talking about the stories, the creation story and the story of the peacemaker. In fact, our kids who are in public school, even when they have that, Iroquois studies program, they don't learn about who we are today. They're taught this again, almost a Disney version of who we once were. Again, and we do the same thing that American history books and the white people do to us. They put us in the past. We put our own selves in the past. And my buddy Matt did a post on Facebook today, talked about the Turo Wampum being on top of the Seneca Allegheny Casino. I mean, that thing sat up there since they built the building. And nobody's really conscientiously questioned, why would there be a Turo Wampum on top of a casino? Casinos operating under federal law, federal jurisdiction. I mean, it's kind of the antithesis of the Turo Wampum. But I mean, I think if you're going to put it up there, then make the argument. There could be an explanation, I guess. Don't know what it is, other than as it was suggested in Matt's post. Look, we fashioned many of these symbols of our culture into just symbols of adornment, decoration. These are Iroquois images. These are Seneca images. Without understanding. I mean, when I think about what we call the tree of peace and the white roots that extend into the four directions of the planet, that whole symbol of that concept is one of inclusion. It says anybody can follow the white roots of peace. We call them the great white roots of peace, and they can follow those roots for protection under that great tree of peace. That's a concept of inclusion, not just inclusion, but I mean not just allowing people to, but actually drawing people in. We in the Guyana de Goa, it talks about it. If we do run off that path, if we do run astray, we don't shut the door on somebody who's lost their way. We do everything we can to bring them back. That's what our culture is. But we've lost our way with that. Now we get mired in all of these other belief systems. I've talked about enlistment in the armed forces and again the adoption of Christian beliefs and cultures that are, even if you're not a devout Christian, we are impacted by it all the time. Now, I'm not just talking about buying chocolate for Easter or putting up a Christmas tree. I'm not just talking about that. I mean the whole idea of Christendom is about hierarchy. It's how we play into this race game that has been developed as a part of church dogma. Yeah, there's so much that we can do to right ourselves, but we are mired in so much of this these other belief systems and these systems of oppression. And make no mistake about it, the military-industrial complex is a system of oppression. The church, any of the churches, they're systems of oppression. You know, the forced citizenship based on the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, that's a system of oppression. Racism by definition is systemic. It is built into the dominant culture to not just promote the concept of hierarchy and superiority, inferiority, but to rig the system so one race of people or one distinct people maintain that superiority over others. That's the game, right? But we get caught into that. Oh, we buy into things like blood quantum issues, who's in the circle, outside of the circle, who's Indianer than somebody else. I mean, man, we get caught into all that stuff. And we can change that. We can revisit so much of that. We just have to be willing to. And like I said, you can still harbor some of these thoughts about patriotism or if not patriotism, whether you consider yourself an ally to American patriotism because you feel strongly about enlisting in the armed forces. But there should be a limit to it. There should be a line that you say, no, I'm not willing to cross that line. We have certain morals and ethics that should be tied to our culture, not to what is permissible in the dominant culture around us. Even the church stuff. I mean, I know many people who maybe devout Christians in many ways, but they still hang on to, significant elements of our culture. And they don't necessarily buy into the good versus evil construct that is so bound to the creation of man. I mean, man created this image or this whole construct of good versus evil. It doesn't exist in nature anyplace else. I mean, a wolf doesn't kill a rabbit because it's evil. And frankly, not even disease attacks life because it's evil. I mean, it may feel that way, and it certainly, look, I'm as hateful about the effects of diabetes and cancer and, so many other things that befall our people. But again, many of these issues we can be proactive towards. Hey, look, it's the bottom of the hour. We'll take a break, and we'll come right back with a little bit more. And we'll get into, I want to take it another step farther on some levels, and we'll do that when we come back. This is John Kane. This is Let's Talk Native.
Comes up on another day. Same faces smiling my same way. I know she feels the same way too. Damn, it's just you. Well, maybe I'm not the romantic kind. No candlelight dinners and no fine French wine. I love you, baby, but I forget to say. I know it's wrong, but I'm just that way. Feel the light, feel the light. Something going on. Feel the light. call I ever get from you is from the bar, 2:30. Feel the light, feel the light. Something going on. Feel the light, and it feels like we got trouble in the wing one. So what's it gonna be? Are we grasping and strong? I still love you, that means anything at all. If you still want me, baby, give me a sign, and I'll be yours.
All right, thanks for coming back. This is John Kane. Hey, I want to, this is Let's Talk Native. I want to give a shout out to my sponsors and those who help me and give me the resources to do what I do. I want to thank Ross and Holly John and the RJE family of businesses, Eric White and ERW Enterprises, my good friends Ed Schindler and Cynthia Trice and Neville Spring, Sugar Montour, and many others who have helped this program. I mean, we were on commercial radio for a number of years. We're in our 8th year now. But we were on commercial radio for quite a time, and it was expensive. And had I not had individuals and businesses, primarily in Seneca territory, and we got some help elsewhere, some Mohawk communities and some other places, Six Nations. But I'm grateful for all of it, even for those who have helped in the past who aren't necessarily helping now. Because if we didn't have that help then, especially while we were carrying such a burden, the expense of being on commercial radio, we wouldn't have been able to build out our studio here and be in the spot that we're at. So I thank you all for having done your part, for helping us to continue to educate and entertain and inform people, for over 7 years. And I'm very grateful to all of you. Hey, I want to also thank Unity Stream and Apache Radio Net for providing our streaming. Also want to thank again CKWE for the simulcast and the rebroadcast on the Gwe and Tandanega. I want to thank Netroots Radio, Real People's Media, and Indigenous Resistance Radio for carrying Let's Talk Native on their networks. And I also want to thank all of you who share the program. My wife in particular, who shares the Facebook live stream on many other Facebook groups. Look, I got to tell you, some of the stuff that I talk about, it's not the widely held conventional wisdom. I mean, some of the things that I say, I know must really be tough for some people to hear, and certainly agree with. And you know what? You don't have to agree with it. I'm voicing my opinion here. I'm voicing my thoughts on a variety of subjects. Each program, and this one here. I know it's tough because we have been affected. We've been affected. I mean, man, the Catholic Church in particular. I mean, think about the Catholic Church control over all of Central and South America. All of our brown brothers that people call Latinos or Hispanics or Chicanos, those are indigenous people. If they're brown, they're indigenous. Spain isn't a white country, folks. And although they all speak Spanish and they've been indoctrinated by by Spanish colonialism and the Catholic Church, we all struggle with some of that. At some level, we all struggle with some of that. It goes into that whole thing that I've talked about in the past, and what ultimately will be my book one day, the cognitive dissonance of assimilation. We struggle with that. We struggle with this knowledge that the lives we are living are not really consistent with who we are as a people, that we've compromised along the way, that we've conceded so much of who we are. And I'm not even talking about the land. I mean, you know what? none of the land has gone anywhere. It's exactly where it was. I'm not saying it hasn't been transformed somewhat, and it certainly has. It has been, it's suffered tremendous abuse at the hands of capitalism and industrialization and, money making, mineral extraction, all of that stuff. But it's still there. The question is, what are we doing to keep that land sustainable? Or keep our lives sustainable from this planet. Look, if we're buying everything that we consume from Walmart, we're not doing enough. So when we talk about, farming and gardening and the things that we need to do to, reduce our impacts on the planet, that's part of who we are. But it's part of what we've lost our way with. So, look, when I begin this show by saying, I'm not going to pray, I'm certainly willing to do something. I'm willing to perform and act. I'm willing to commit myself. Look, I've been doing this radio show for again, into our 8th year. Now, I'm not saying that I'm solving our problems or the world's problems with voicing these opinions. But I'm trying to provide a platform for those conversations to at least begin the process of taking action. I was a clear critic on some of the mentality that went into the fight at Standing Rock. But, I'm Mohawk. When they wanted to expand a golf course, a 9-hole golf course in the village of Oka to an 18-hole golf course by going onto Mohawk land and Gondazadage, we resisted, and we fought back. We didn't just resist; we fought back. And I'm not saying that model was the best way to approach it then, or that that same model is going to work from time to time. But you know what? There's still no 18-hole golf course there. We fought it and we pushed them back. And look, there was cost to it. Our people got abused and and assaulted and stabbed and jailed. But we resisted, and the golf course didn't happen. The same can't be said for Standing Rock. The pipeline got built, folks. And you know what? It got built by the president that everybody loved, right? Barack Obama. That's who was in the White House when that pipeline got not just built, but when it was conceived of, when it was authorized, when the permits were granted. And yeah, in the 11th hour, he suggested there should be some environmental review. As the screen door was hitting his ass as he was going out the door. Look, we need to hold the people accountable that we select to carry our voice, whether it's done through elections or traditional process or anything else. We need to make sure that we stand up to this oppression and indoctrination. We need to make sure that we don't fold under the pressure of the White House or the governor's mansion or the Congress or the state legislatures, none of that stuff. And we can maintain integrity. We can maintain our sovereignty, but the sovereignty is not our defense. It is what we defend. In order for us to sustain ourselves and to, again, decolonize and reinvigorate our identity as distinct people, there's some lines we got to step. We got to step back across. We've already crossed many of those lines. We got to step back from it. And you know what? We're not going to pray our way out of this. And I'll tell you something else. Nobody's going to vote their way out of this thing either. You're not going to vote for a native leader who's going to save you, or for a white leader, black leader, anybody else who's going to save you. The solution to the issues that we face are within us. And you know what? They're also within our children. We need to give them the tools and the support to solve the problems that we failed to solve. But I'll tell you, we've had generations that thought the best thing for a young man was to enlist in the army. Go be a man. We've convinced generations of kids that education, Go to college, get a degree, learn their system. Yeah. Again, I go back to that meme that I posted on Facebook, the Star Wars meme that says, okay, so we're all in agreement. We're going to join the empire and change it from within. Said no rebel ever. I think that's a great meme. I know that kind of stirred the pot too. We're not going to change their system from within. If we step into their system expecting to change it, how? We're gonna get a native president? That ain't gonna happen. And I'll tell you, on the slim chance that somebody ever makes it to the White House with a drop of native blood, that would have been, so diluted, not just in terms of just blood or blood quantum, but in terms of philosophy and culture, that person will not even closely resemble the identity of a Ongwe. And to join that system is to become that system. Now, I watch all the stuff and Democrats versus Republicans, and who Native people are so support. Neither one of those sides have us on their list. We're not priorities for any. We're not a part of any party platform in the U.S. system. The only time a Democrat ever sees things our way is if it's in their interest already. Again, one of my own memes, I said, racism is not a right thing, as in the political right. It's a white thing. Well, I've heard some of the most racist things come out of Democrats. Schumer, Cuomo. It's not just, it's easy to pick out the racist stuff that comes out of a moron like Donald Trump. He's blatant. He's blatant in his racism. But that subtle racism is every bit as dangerous to us as the blatant stuff. Look, somebody shows up with a white hood and a Confederate flag at my doorstep. I know what that person's going to do. But the guy who shows up with a Bible in his hand and offering to be my friend, and telling me about programs that are going to help me and how much I'm from the government, I'm here to help. Yeah, I don't think so. We have the opportunity. And I'm not just talking about the opportunity because of financial resources. Yeah, we've got money-making enterprises on our territories. Casinos. We've got many native territories that are involved in the extractive industry, making millions of dollars out of coal, off of mining, off of oil. Hey, the Osage, they were the richest people on the planet at one time because of oil resources. And all that money indoctrinated them. All that money made them targets for murder, for infiltration, for, assimilation. It didn't do anything to maintain, to really give them integrity as a people. And I'm not challenging their ethicalness or their morality. I'm just saying that the money didn't give them the resources to maintain identity. But it could. It could. And we can use the dollars that we have to reinvigorate our language programs, and many places are. We could use those resources to recapture some of the processes. Look, Guyana to Goa doesn't have to be this pathway to, for revolution against band councils or corrupt traditional systems. But it's something that we could all learn and begin to adopt elements of that in our lives to the point where we say, this is a system that we can actually take the legs out of. When we see systems of failure in band councils or tribal councils or, traditional councils, if they aren't doing the job and we start to use, our traditional systems to solve, to address those issues, we don't need to take those old systems out. We can just make them less relevant in our lives, which is exactly what we should be doing to state and federal programs and state and federal policies. We should be making all of those programs with their oppression and strings and indoctrination tied to it. We should be doing all that we can to remove that as essential parts of who we are. Look, I know this sounds big. It sounds almost insurmountable. But I got to tell you, things are not going well. I mean, look at who the United States elected as their president, for crying out loud. You think that's a good thing? Yeah, many of you do. There's even plenty of Native people. I see people posting on Facebook. I see plenty of people singing the praises of Donald Trump. Not a lot. I think most Native people, are concerned about, this guy's, every aspect of this guy, everything from his morality to his racism to, to everything, to his incompetence, some of the moronic stuff that this guy says and does. Forget about, porn stars and, grabbing, whatever he's grabbing, I guess. Forget about that stuff. There are bigger issues at play. The idea of building a wall, that idea failed in China and in Berlin, but, Trump's going to build one with probably big gold shiny letters that say Trump all over it. That's what his plan is. And he's going to sell that idea to the American people, by burying it in a $1 trillion infrastructure project where, a quarter of it or a half of it will be swallowed up just in building a wall that'll be pointless. But I know a lot of Native people, not a lot, but a significant number of Native people who are okay with that. In fact, I saw a bunch of Navajo leaders sucking right up to this guy. I mean, that is, to me, indoctrination is bad enough when it blinds your, obscures your vision, I guess. But when it obscures your vision to the point that you will fail to see the dangers of a policy or a person advancing that policy, where you're just going to ignore the morality issues, you're going to ignore the ignorance and the incompetence. Why? Because you hope there's going to be some aspect of this man in the White House that's going to benefit you. This goes back to the whole scorpion and the frog, or the scorpion and the turtle thing. When that scorpion turns around and stings that frog, and they both start to sink in the river, and the frog says, "I was giving you a ride to the other side. Why would you do such a thing?" The scorpion says, "It's my nature." Well, what do you think Donald Trump's nature is? Do you think he cares? Do you think he gives a rat's ass about us or anybody else other than his family and the people he's really serving? This is all part of that indoctrination, folks. This is what has led to the oppressiveness that our people face every day. Hey, behind me, I've got one of my new banners, my missing and murdered Indigenous women. You know why there are missing and murdered Indigenous women? I'll give you a couple reasons why. Patriarchy, for one. Male dominant society. The idea that women should be subservient to men. 70% of the domestic violence that takes place on Native territories is perpetrated by non-Native people. Men, white men, abusing Native women. 70% of it. But you know what? 30% of it's still Native men doing it. We're guilty of some of this too, and we're guilty of looking the other way. Not just to our Native sons or our brothers or our uncles or our cousins who are beating their wives and children, but even our white buddies that we bring into our territories who are abusing our women. We don't even stand up to them. We look the other way on this stuff. Now, again, I would say most of the cause, at least from a perpetrator standpoint, is the non-Native. It's the outside. It's man camps tied to the extractive industries. It is corrupt police forces who not only refuse to investigate these disappearances, but oftentimes are involved in it. It is, again, the male-dominant society, the sex slaves, and rapes and murders that are taking place because there's this sexualization that has taken place in everything from Walt Disney to stories of the past, and this whole idea that these guys want an Indian princess. I mean, there's websites white men looking for hot Indian girls. There's Facebook group pages that we post pictures of our own women on. And I mean, so the sexualization of Native women contributes to this stuff. But I'll tell you something else that does it. the poverty in our territories, the sense of hopelessness in our territories. If you're a 13-year-old girl, or boy for that matter, and you see no prospect for the future, I use that expression because when when Barack Obama spoke at Nelson Mandela's funeral, big grand stage, I think it was even raining out, big grand stage, people, a sea of people out there, to hear Barack Obama talking. And he talked about how there are still places on the earth, all over the planet, where young people, have no prospect for the future. So as much as he'll talk about the opportunities that he and his wife, a black family, were able to, the fact that he could rise to the presidency of the United States, and the opportunities that were presented in his lifetime, he was acknowledging that there were places on the planet where young people had no hope for the future, no prospects for the future. You know what? They weren't just third world countries in Africa that condition existed. You could go to any native territory, even the gaming tribes, and see hopelessness in the face of young people. So when American policy has created this circumstance that leaves entire generations of people with no hope or prospect for the future, if the only thing you can do is work for the tribe, work for the nation, because there is no economic development in your territory. If the only prospect for the future is to be on the in crowd, to be a part of the haves as opposed to the have-nots, so you've got to play that political game on your native territory, whether it's in Pine Ridge or whether it's in Seneca Nation. If there aren't, and there are more opportunities here in Seneca Nation, don't get me wrong, than there are in places in some of the, New Mexico, South Dakota, North Dakota, Idaho, Wisconsin. It's really, really tough in some of these places to see real economic development. Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, Alberta. It is real tough to find places where true opportunity exists to have, not just a sustainable, but a thriving culture and a thriving economy. And if you create poverty at the level that Native people experience on Turtle Island, then what you've also created is a condition where people do almost anything to escape it. Sometimes that escape is a needle in their arms or a bottle in their hands. Sometimes it's a gun to their head or a noose around their neck. Sometimes it's just running away. Sometimes it's looking for somebody who's going to help you to escape the hopelessness that exists on our territories. That's why we have missing and murdered Indigenous women. The reason we have it is because we're not trying to address the root cause of the depression that exists in our territories. We're just treating the symptoms. We're offering rehab. We're offering medication, which isn't the solution. We're offering Band-Aids to cancer. We have the opportunity to affect change. We have the opportunity to use our culture, our vast history, our identity, to reclaim our identity, to use all of those teachings, our language, to reclaim that identity and to reclaim our future. But if we think we're going to vote in a state or a national election, we're going to vote in their system. We're going to look for a Native governor or a Native president or a Native congressman or a Native state legislator to solve our problem. Man, I'll tell you, I'll go back to that Star Wars meme. If we think we're going to pray for divine intervention, think about what the ghost dance was. This idea that we're going to perform a ceremony that's going to help us with divine intervention become invisible and impenetrable to their bullets. And what happened? They came and they murdered Sitting Bull, and they massacred 300 or 400 men, women, and children at Wounded Knee because of that ghost dance. Because even though it wasn't real, it scared them. And look, I'm not suggesting we need to do something that has to scare white people. Their white fragility is the next obvious step from white privilege. They're scared of Hispanics and black people and other groups that may overtake them in terms of being the majority of the American population. That's not what I'm even advocating. I'm just saying take control of our lives. I'm not trying to overthrow their systems. When we talk about, again, the task of an activist is not to navigate the systems of oppressive power with as much personal integrity as possible. It is to dismantle those systems. That's not my quote. That's a quote from Lear Keith. I'm not saying that we need to dismantle their systems. I'm saying we need to entangle ourselves from them. We need to start there. We create a model that works. We create systems that are not based on oppression, but are based on expression and creativity. We create those, and then the change will happen for others. But we got to change ourselves first. I won't pray for you, but I'll work. I'll perform a task for you. If you need my help, I'll help. I'll give voice to it. I'll give what's left of my physical ability to help affect positive change. But I'll not speak to the sky for you. I'm John Kane. This is Let's Talk Native. And we'll be back on Monday. Yahweh.
Bunch of money as you do.